Welcome back, everybody, to the Hannah Sports Podcast. I'm Andrew Hanna, and we have a Tuesday edition. It is April 11th at 10:40 in the morning. And today we are going to be talking news and transactions from the last few days from around the NFL. Starting first with an article from April 9th from Bobby Kounick. Ex-Bengal Carson Palmer tabs Joe Burrow over Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback, saying, quote, he's more consistent. The Bengals and Chiefs needed no help bolstering their rivalry, but a former Cincinnati quarterback decided to add fuel to the fire regardless. I think Joe is the best quarterback in the league, Carson Palmer said last week on the Quarterback Room podcast. I know Patrick is phenomenal, but I just think that Joe's more consistent. He's more consistent, he's more accountable to run the system and the play that's called and not feel like, well, he didn't win last time and get open for me, so I'm going to do it with my feet. And then before you know it, you're sacked for a 4-yard loss because you tried to make 2 or 3 guys miss. Saying, quote, Joe is just talk about not having a weakness. Mentally strong, physically tough, accurate, can throw it far enough, fast enough, gets the ball out quick, and then he can actually do a lot of things with his legs. He just rarely shows it. I think he's as athletic outside the pocket and can do a lot of the same things that Patrick Mahomes has done. He hasn't done it and showed it yet. He's played more within his system and style, but I think he's the best quarterback in the league. As reigning NFL MVP, the Super Bowl champion Mahomes is a natural starting point for any debate over the best quarterback in the league. The fact that the Chiefs and Bengals have met in and split the previous 2 AFC championship games by a total of 6 points also lends itself to pitting the 2 players against each other. Mahomes has a hardware to back up his claim as king of the hill, as well as a longer history of excellence in the most recent victory despite a 1-3 head-to-head record versus Burrow. But their stat lines during the past 2 seasons aren't remarkably off. Mahomes has completed 871 of 1,306 attempts for 10,089 yards, 78 touchdowns, and 25 interceptions over 34 games. Meanwhile, Burrow has connected on 780 of his 1,126 attempts in 2 fewer contests, amassing 9,086 yards and 69 touchdowns to 26 interceptions. And I was just talking to a friend last night about Patrick Mahomes, and we were talking about quarterbacks that could compete against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And the quarterbacks that I could name off was both Joe Burrow and Josh Allen as far as the AFC goes. And my friend David happened to ask me, he said, how is Patrick Mahomes always cool as a cucumber? And I got to thinking about that myself after he asked the question. He's never had to deal with adversity since joining the NFL. Since joining the NFL, he has never had to deal with adversity. He has had Andy Reid, one of the top 3 coaches in NFL, probably top 5 coach in NFL history, as his head coach. Since Patrick Mahomes has been on the Kansas City Chiefs, since in the years that he started, beginning in 2018, he's gone 12-4, 12-4, 14-2, 12-5, 14-3. The man has never had to deal with a losing season since coming to the NFL. Can't be more calm than that. Even the year before, the year that he was drafted where he didn't start, the Chiefs still went 10-6 with Alex Smith. That's the only explanation for that's why he's as comfortable as he is he has never had to deal with adversity in the NFL. And I said about the only way that I could compare Patrick Mahomes, I gave him high praise yesterday. The man is talented. I said comparing Patrick Mahomes, the only person that I could compare him to as far as his creativity is he reminds me a lot of watching Michael Jordan when I was growing up in the 90s. The way that Michael, how creative he would get when things would break down, like, you would see, I don't know how many highlights of, Michael driving to the rim and then, somebody gets in his way and he's just able to magician his way around and put up a layup that just sinks in. That's about the only way that I could compare Patrick Mahomes is when the pocket breaks down, the man's a magician. He thinks on his feet. He's one of the best at it. Burrow, I mean, I've gotten to see a few Bengal games. I really like his ability, but I don't think he's at that level yet of Mahomes. Or if he has, he hasn't shown it yet. But I still think they're damn close. But being able to decide between the two at this point, I think it would have to be along the lines of you'd have to give Patrick Mahomes the edge in that one because he's won the championships. But that also deals in large part with Andy Reid. Honestly, I had made the statement. I said if Patrick Mahomes was anywhere else, I don't think he'd be as successful or have the championships that he's had with Kansas City. I think in large part it has to deal with Andy Reid and the team and the environment that he builds around. Kansas City has dealt with so many years of success under Andy Reid. And I think with any other coach, any other team, Patrick Mahomes does not have the success that he's had or the championships that he's won. I think that if Patrick Mahomes, like I said, he's never had to deal with that adversity. I told my friend he's calm because he's successful. If this Kansas City team, because all dynasties eventually fall. We saw it with New England. Before New England, it was Dallas. You know, the dynasties eventually fall. If things started to crumble in Kansas City, I don't imagine Patrick Mahomes is going to stay around. I think he's going to go next to where he's had that taste of championship at a very young career. I feel like once Kansas City, if they were to crumble, if things were to start to crumble there, you know, say Andy Reid decides to retire or something like that, they bring in a new coach, not putting together successful years. Patrick may give it a year or two, but I think he's going to go to where he thinks he has the best chance to win. Joe, you know, I hope he does reach that next year. They've been really close games. They've been close games between Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. And for the longest time, we were talking about, you know, Tom Brady. You know, we were really blessed in the 90s and in the 2000s and the 2010s to deal with all these different quarterbacks like Drew Brees and Aaron. I have to say Aaron Rodgers. I have to say it. You know, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, you know, all these different quarterbacks that were just amazing in their primes. And now we're in the next generation. And we were trying to name off quarterbacks that we think could reach that level of talent to bring the sort of excitement and high-octane games that, you know, we got to see in, you know, the 2010s and whatnot from all the quarterback talent that we saw. And the first three quarterbacks that we named off was Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. I feel like you got to give Patrick Mahomes the edge because he has the championships. But when it comes to the level of talent, those three quarterbacks take the cake. The next story that came out April 9th that I'm sure everybody has heard now. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. agrees to terms with the Ravens on a one-year deal worth up to $18 million. This is an article by Brenna White. Wide receiver Odell Beckham has finally found a new team and is heading back to the AFC North, this time in purple and black. Beckham has agreed to terms on a one-year deal worth up to $18 million with the Baltimore Ravens, NFL Network insiders Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, and Mike Garafolo reported Sunday. The team later announced the news. The deal includes $13.835 million signing bonus, $1.165 million base salary, and a $3 million in reachable incentives. Pelissero added. The veteran will make at least $15 million and as much as $18 million. Beckham spent the 2022 season as a free agent recovering from a torn ACL that he suffered while helping the Los Angeles Rams win Super Bowl 56. The Super Bowl champion had several suitors last year but chose to bide his time and focus on his recovery instead. Beckham has made headlines and caught touchdowns in equal measure over 8 seasons with the Giants, Browns, and Rams, racking up 7,367 yards and 56 touchdowns since he entered the league in 2014. He also averages 13.9 yards per reception and at 30 still has a lot left in him. Beckham's decision to sign with the Ravens certainly blindsided at least one team, the New York Jets, who planned to host the 3-time Pro Bowler for a visit Sunday night. This would have included a physical and discussion about what he could expect in a potential Aaron Rodgers-led offense, according to Rappaport. However, the Ravens swooped in with the money. Now, if quarterback Lamar Jackson stays in Baltimore, this duo could spell trouble for defenses across the league. But will they, though? I said it yesterday on the channel. I think he's probably the most overhyped receiver in the NFL. And he's given way too many chances because of his name and the spark that he did in the first 3 years with the Giants. He took a step back when the Giants took a step back. Those first 3 years, he looked like he was going to be top 5 receiver in the NFL for a long time. But now we need to sit back and think, how much of a grace period should somebody get for past performances? Because since he has not finished top 15 in anything in any category since 2018, hasn't been a Pro Bowler since 2016, and 2 out of the last 3 years now has had ACL injuries, ACL tears. And now he's going to be paid around top 15 receiver money. But on what grounds? I feel like this is just a desperate attempt for Baltimore to try to keep Lamar in Baltimore. But in doing so, you overpaid for a crippled receiver. He's a big risk factor at this point. He's now going to be playing in his age 31 season this year. If you wanted Lamar back that much and it happens to be an argument over money, you should have taken that $18 million and put it towards his contract. And maybe taken a chance on a receiver in the draft. Beckham, he's just a name at this point. He does not have top 10 production anymore. Hasn't been a top 10 receiver for a great number of years. At this point, I'm saying everybody needs to let the name Beckham go. He could prove me wrong this year. I doubt it. To an article yesterday from Kevin Patra, Rob Gronkowski says there's no chance of NFL return, saying, quote, "I'm happily retired." You can close the door on a potential Rob Gronkowski return. The former New England Patriots and Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end told TMZ last week he wouldn't unretire again to resume his Hall of Fame career. Quote, "There's no chance anymore," Gronk said when asked if he would return to playing. "I'm happily retired." The 33-year-old retired in June 2022, but at the time, even his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, didn't believe Gronk hung up his spikes for good. Despite reports of a possible return, the tight end sat out the entire 2022 campaign. Given that he retired and sat out all of 2019 before returning with the Bucs for another Super Bowl run, the possibility that Gronkowski could return again lingered, albeit less so since Tom Brady's most recent retirement. Still, Gronk insists he's done with pro football. Quote, "I actually picked up pickleball," he said. "I beat my brother Chris, who plays with the pros, and I beat my other brother Gordon, who plays with the pros too. I beat them with an average Joe. My brother Glenn was my partner. So I'm happily retired. I'm still competing. I'm still winning, so I don't even need to go back to football." For health reasons, I'm glad. Way to go. Enjoy the retirement. You've won your championships. Good. But saying there's no chance, let's play scenario time. Let's say, because he came back to pursue another championship with Tom Brady. And it ended up working out. And let's say the Chiefs call him up and say, "We want to team you up with Travis Kelce and have you guys run 2 tight end sets, for a chance for a championship." How do you say no to that? They say never. And, I give him props, and I'm glad he's enjoying his retirement. He's won his championships. He has nothing left to prove. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer someday, without a doubt. But if he gets that phone call, I think the right team could still nab him up if he thought that there was a potential for a championship and it was in a situation where he felt like he was going to contribute. Say if Kansas City called him up, be like, Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski, that is going to draw a crowd. And moving on to another article from yesterday, the NFL heads to Kenya as NFL Africa program expands. The National Football League's NFL Africa program is set to expand to Kenya as the league continues to invest in growing the game at all levels across the continent. The expansion will see the NFL host a talent identification camp and NFL flag football showcase in Nairobi, Kenya this April 10th through 15th, underlining a long-term multi-market commitment to developing more ways to serve a growing fan base in Africa. Quote, "Growing the NFL globally is a major strategic priority for the league, and developing our footprint and fandom in Africa is an important part of this vision," said Brett Gosper, head of NFL Europe and Africa. We are excited to expand NFL Africa into Kenya and look forward to creating opportunities for the next generation of African players and fans there to engage with our sport. From NFL Flag inspiring young people to play the game around the world to building pathways for more international athletes to play in the NFL, there is a place in our sport for everyone. With more than 125 players of African descent from 15 countries across the continent currently playing in the NFL, a talent identification camp for promising young athletes will take place this month in Kenya. 29 prospects, aged 16 to 21 from African nations including Cameroon, Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, and Senegal, will take part in a 3-day NFL Combine-style camp to showcase their skills. This is another thing that I've talked about the last couple of years, because when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, people were saying in the comments world champions, and other people were trying to argue against that, saying they're not technically the world champions because it was just played in America. And what I was saying to that is American football has already, I think when I looked it up, it was in like 68 different countries. It's starting to work its way around the world and rise in popularity. And as it does, it's going to be, I said, maybe not now, but in the maybe next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see the NFL start to morph into what I call morph into the MLB. You're going to see players being drafted from, all over the world. Players that are coming, like in baseball, it's, there's a lot of players from Cuba, Dominican Republic, Japan, from all over the world. And the NFL, I could see both sides to that argument about it being called world champions when it comes to the NFL. But there's no higher talent, no better league, better talent than the NFL when it comes to American football. And to me, the NFL will always be the world championship for that reason, because there is no better talent, no better place in the world to play football than the National Football League. But I am glad that it's still continuing to spread into Africa and other places around the world, growing in popularity. I think the NFL is going to be a really fun product to watch over the next 10 years as these international players start to work their way into the NFL like they do in Major League Baseball. Also coming out from yesterday from NFL.com Wire Report, Commanders settle with Washington, D.C. on ticket deposits. The Washington Commanders have settled a lawsuit with the District of Columbia Attorney General's office over fans' season ticket deposit money. Attorney General Brian Schwab on Monday announced the agreement that returns $200,000 to fans and pay $425,000 to the district to resolve allegations related to the deposits. Predecessor Carl Racine filed the consumer protection lawsuit late last year before leaving office, and Schwab picked up the case. The district's investigation showed the team deceptively kept fans' deposits for years after ticket contracts expired, improperly used that money, and in some cases made it difficult to reclaim the money. Quote, rather than being transparent and upfront in their ticket sales practices, the Commanders unlawfully took advantage of their fan base, holding on to security deposits instead of returning them, Schwab said in a statement. Under this settlement agreement, our office will maintain strict oversight over the Commanders to ensure all necessary steps are taken to reimburse fans for the funds that they are entitled to. The district still has a civil lawsuit ongoing against the Commanders' owner Dan Snyder, the NFL, and Commissioner Roger Goodell over what the Attorney General's office called collusion to deceive residents about the team's toxic workplace culture. A league investigation into the team yielded a $10 million fine but no written report, which prompted a congressional review. The Commanders previously settled with Maryland on season ticket holder deposits by agreeing to return the money and pay the state $250,000. Under the terms of the settlement with the district, the Commanders must conduct a public records search for contact information for affected fans and attempt to notify them, disclose the refund process on their website, and provide the Attorney General's office with regular reports documenting their progress. Quote, we have not accepted security deposits or seat licenses in more than a decade and have been actively working to return any remaining deposits since 2014, a Commanders spokesperson said in an email to the Associated Press. We are pleased to have reached an agreement on the matter with the D.C. Attorney General and will work with the office to fulfill our obligations to our fans. The Commanders also denied all of the allegations made by the district in the settlement agreement, per NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero. Just another fucking problem for Commander fans. I have never met a Commander fan. I know they exist, but how many remain? I feel like as much bullshit as the fans of that organization go to, it's almost just simpler at this point to say, I'm going over there. Poor bastards. Another article coming out yesterday from the Associated Press. Family says Dwayne Haskins was drugged before he was fatally struck. From Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the family of deceased Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Dwayne Haskins has filed a lawsuit against several people, businesses, and the state of Florida, claiming he was drugged, robbed, and extorted before he was fatally struck while standing drunk on a highway after running out of gas. The lawsuit, filed recently in Fort Lauderdale, alleges the former Ohio State star was drugged and robbed by a man and 3 women in the hours before the April 9, 2022 accident. They say it happened at a Boca Raton hotel, at an upscale golf driving range, a bar, and a nightclub. The lawsuit does not give any specifics. Haskins, 24, has been in South Florida for off-season workouts with Steelers teammates when the accident happened. The lawsuit, filed on behalf of his widow and parents, also names the driver and the owner of the dump truck that struck him, saying it was exceeding the speed limit, had worn tires and brakes, and was overloaded. It says the pickup truck Haskins had rented had a mechanical defect that caused it to run out of gas. The family also alleges that the State Highway Department didn't properly maintain and light the road or post a lower speed limit while construction work was being done. They say a temporary sign blocked visibility on the highway. Family attorney Rick Elsley said in a statement that the lawsuit will allow him to subpoena documents and question those who were with Haskins as part of the process of uncovering the complete truth about his tragedy. As to what occurred in the hours before Dwayne was killed, many questions remain unanswered. It is believed that Dwayne was targeted and drugged as part of a blackmail and robbery conspiracy. In fact, his highly expensive watch was stolen from him shortly before his death, Elsley said in a statement. He declined to answer specific questions about the lawsuit's allegations. According to a death report issued in May by the Broward County Medical Examiner's Office, a woman Haskins was with told investigators they had run out of gas on Interstate 595 near Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport shortly before dawn. She said he went out into the dark to get more fuel. Witnesses told Florida Highway Patrol that Haskins was trying to wave down cars and standing in the center lane when he was hit by a truck and then an SUV. The report said he died of blunt force trauma. Haskins' blood alcohol content was .20, according to his autopsy. That's 2.5 times the .08 legal limit for driving in the state. According to the University of California, Davis, and other universities, someone of Haskins' weight, 230 pounds, would have needed at least 10 drinks in the hours before his death to reach that level. He also had the strong painkiller ketamine and its metabolite, norketamine, in his system. The drug can be prescribed by a doctor but can also be abused recreationally. The report did not say whether the drug had been prescribed. Haskins starred at Ohio State in 2018, setting several school passing records and being named the MVP in both the Big Ten championship game and the Buckeyes' Rose Bowl win over the Washington Huskies. A 2019 first-round NFL draft pick by Washington, Haskins was released by the team after going 3-10 over 2 seasons. He was signed for the 2021 season by Pittsburgh as a backup quarterback, but he didn't appear in a game. I mean, you hope that there's no conspiracy. Everything around that story was tragic, but the autopsy report says his alcohol level was a .20. And witnesses that saw it said that he was trying to wave down cars and was standing in the center lane when he was hit by a truck and an SUV. When you hear something like that, you know he was probably messed up. And that's just being young. It comes with the territory. Everybody has done some sort of thing that was either reckless, dangerous, foolish, or something like that when they're young. And unfortunately, it happened to Dwayne Haskins, and it came with some fatal effects. He shouldn't have been out standing out in the middle of the road. He shouldn't have been drunk. If there was some sort of foul play that was happening beforehand, you know, it's not the fault of the highway. It's not the fault of the driver. If there was an issue with the car that he ran out of gas, their issue should be with them, if anything. With the vehicle that he had, I believe it said that he had rented, that I can see. taking it up with the driver who had hit him. He shouldn't have been standing in the middle of the road. The highway not being lit enough. I mean, that's most highways across America. There's just, it would cost so much money to light all the highways. So much money. And most highways are dark. I mean, that's just the way that it is. I mean, sure, it was near an airport, so maybe you have an argument there, but I don't believe that there's any laws for the highway department that says they have to be lit. Don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I just know it's a tragic story all around, and hopefully there was no foul play involved, but I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it. Article coming out this morning from Kevin Patra. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa very excited for 2023 outlook, smiling a lot more entering year 4. Tua's season ended on the sideline with the Miami Dolphins quarterback missing the team's final 2 regular season games and postseason loss due to concussion issues. The quarterback had spent the offseason doing jiu-jitsu and gaining muscle in hopes of stiff-arming the injury bug that has plagued his young pro career. Off-season training has been good, he said Monday at his second annual Luau with Tua event benefiting his foundation via the Palm Beach Post. Quote, been working on strength in many areas and been chipping away at things that I felt like I needed to work on to get to where I feel like I can get to in the later parts of the season. Tua missed 4 regular season games and the playoff defeat to the Buffalo Bills, a game in which the Dolphins were forced to start rookie 7th-rounder Skylar Thompson under center. Through the first 3 seasons of his career, Tagovailoa has never played in more than 13 games. He's aimed to change the narrative that he can't stay healthy in 2023. Despite the chance to bring in an experienced veteran to replace or push Tua this offseason, the Dolphins have propped up the former first-round pick at every turn. They've already exercised his $23.17 million fifth-year option for 2024. The team added Mike White as insurance but didn't go out and push to move on from Tua. Instead, they operated as a team that believes it can win a championship with Tua under center. They brought back key pieces on offense, traded for star corner Jalen Ramsey, and signed linebacker David Long on defense. Quote, I'm very excited, he said. I think our entire team is excited to get back out there, get to meet a lot of newer guys, and guys who have been in the system for a whole year now. So it's very exciting, and I think a lot of fans, the community, and everyone is very supportive. Entering year 2 under coach Mike McDaniel, Tua, sporting a new mustache this offseason, believes the horizon is brighter. Quote, how do I feel now compared to a year ago? I'm smiling a lot more. So I would say good. If Tua stays healthy in 2023, Dolphins fans will be smiling a lot more as well. And if he can stay fucking healthy, man, the guy is talented, all right? Pro Football Focus had him rated as the 5th highest passer grade in the NFL. Last season, despite missing those games, he was 12th in passing yards, throwing over 3,500 yards, and he finished tied for 8th in touchdowns with 25, and he only threw 8 interceptions. So, solid production there, and it was just bad luck and bad protection, because looking at his rushing numbers from last year, and this is according to Pro Football Focus, he only had 14 designed runs and 10 scrambles. That's not a lot compared to a lot of other quarterbacks. Some other quarterbacks around the NFL. You know, he tries to remain in the pocket, and he's got a good arm. And the Dolphins, if he can stay healthy this year, the Dolphins are going to be fun to watch. And so I hope he makes a good bounce back, because his story has kind of been, to this point, a very unfortunate one. And I hope that he can make that comeback and take that extra step and get the Dolphins to where they haven't been in a long time. Also coming out this morning from Kevin Patra, around the NFL writer, Seahawks defensive lineman Dre'Mont Jones wants to put people on notice after Denver departure. The Seattle Seahawks wanted Dre'Mont Jones as part of last year's trade of Russell Wilson to Denver. Instead, John Schneider and the Seahawks brass had to wait a year and shell out big bucks in free agency to ink the disruptive defensive lineman. Quote, almost out of nowhere, Seattle came in hot, Jones told reporters last week via the News Tribune. That kind of motivated me to come here more and more. Jones noted that while Broncos management kept him out of the Wilson deal, in which they sent a host of draft picks, quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, and defensive lineman Shelby Harris to the Seahawks for Wilson. They didn't back it up with a new deal to ensure he remained in Denver for the long haul. Quote, I mean, shit. They should have just traded me from the jump, Jones said of the Broncos. I was included in the Wilson trade, and Denver said no. And then Denver I don't want to say that word, but Denver didn't pay me my proper respects. So I'm here because the Seahawks respected me from the jump. The Seahawks paid big to bring in Jones, signing him to a 3-year, $51 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. There were discussions heading into the offseason that the Broncos could franchise tag Jones. Ultimately, the brass elected not to, and instead allowed him to walk in free agency. Sean Payton's club signed former Cardinals defensive lineman Zach Allen to replace Jones at nearly $2 million less per season. Allen worked under new defensive coordinator Vance Joseph in Arizona for the past 4 seasons. But Jones is also coming off an injury and got paid a lot of money for a player who's never had more than 6.5 sacks or 45-plus pressures in a season. Quote, I always get like overshadowed and overlooked in something, you know what I'm saying? Jones said. I feel like I do a lot more than can be seen by the eyes of the inexperienced scout, and I do a lot of dynamic, different things that help make plays for others. I'm definitely an active player. I'm always doing something, whether it's in the run or pass game. I think that goes unnoticed sometimes, and I'm looking forward to putting people on notice. I mean, if you look at his statistics, he came into the league in the 2019 draft. He was a 3rd-round pick, and since 2019, he's been productive. He has 133 total tackles, 22 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 6 pass deflections, and an interception. He's not the playmaker he's claiming to be. But I would have to agree with Kevin right here that he's getting paid a lot of money. $30 million guaranteed over 3 years. That's never had more than 6.5 sacks in a season. I can understand paying somebody that much money if it was a defensive tackle, because that's a solid season. Having anywhere from 3.5 to 6.5 sacks in a season, that's good. That's real good for a defensive tackle. But as far as defensive ends go, you're not even top 20 since you entered the league for sacks. The Seahawks, I think they heavily overpaid. It was almost a better idea for the Broncos to bring in a Zach Allen for less money. As Zach Allen's coming off of his best season with 41 total tackles last year, 8 pass deflections, and 5.5 sacks. I mean, those are some pretty solid numbers, and he's getting them for less than Dre'Mont Jones. I think the Broncos are the winner in that area, bringing in a Zach Allen. Dre'Mont, it's not that they were disrespecting you. They were paying you what they thought was fair for your production. Every player out on that field is going to say, I work harder. I work just as hard as everybody else. Doesn't matter how hard you work. As I've said, when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to any professional sports league, it's what have you done for me lately? And if you're not putting out top 20 numbers, you shouldn't get top 20 pay. It's as simple as that. Kevin Patra, who has been very busy this morning. Another article coming out. Mark Ingram hopes to play 13th NFL season. Credits longevity to splitting backfields over career. Mark Ingram hopes to keep his NFL career alive into its 13th season. The former first-round pick said Monday on the Paul Feinbaum show that he doesn't plan to retire and believes the reduced wear and tear from being in so many committee backfields, dating back to his Alabama days, has been a positive, even if it's frustrating during a game. Quote, splitting time, splitting backfields has been a blessing. But it's also been frustrating at times because I felt like on several occasions, or had I had the opportunity to be a feature guy, a bell cow, knowing I wake up Sunday, knowing I'm going to get 20 touches, I think that's a little different. But I don't have any regrets. Every time I just try to take advantage of my opportunities, try to take advantage of my role within the offense, and maximize my touches anytime that I have the opportunity to touch the ball. I think sharing backfields, I think not getting overloaded with 300 carries a season for like 5 or 6 seasons in a row, I think that has helped me make it to year 13 and still have a good body where I feel strong, I feel explosive, I feel like I can contribute and produce at a high level, but also just mentally as well, physical, emotionally, all that. That's why I think I still have that drive and that hunger and desire, and I think that has something to do with me sharing the ball and splitting time over the years, even in college. At 33 years old, Ingram has never had more than 230 plus carries in a campaign. That career high came in 2017, which was a Pro Bowl campaign in which he generated 1,124 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns, the best season of his career. He currently sits 50th all time with 8,111 rushing yards. After 8 seasons in New Orleans, Ingram played 2 in Baltimore and signed in Houston in 2021, but was traded back to the Saints midway through the season. He played in 10 games in New Orleans last year, missing the final 4 tilts due to an injury. The running back market has been savage on veterans this offseason, with players like Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, and Jerick McKinnon and others still lingering in free agency. With a deep draft at the position, we can assume clubs aren't in a hurry to sign running backs at this stage of the offseason. How the draft shakes out will determine the next opportunities for the host of veterans without jobs. Whether Ingram finds a landing spot for 2023 remains to be seen. But clearly, he's not ready to announce his retirement and move into the media field just yet. You know, the disrespect for running backs, at this point, they are starting to get the fullback treatment. They are the least paid guys on the offense, usually, when it comes to the positional players. And I've always thought that was extremely disrespectful and needed to be changed. And these guys need to get more money because no other player on the field gets hit more than a running back. It is the only position on the field where the play is designed for you to get hit, because you could run the ball 300 times in a season and only score on 17. You could only score, 15 to 17 touchdowns in a season, despite touching the ball. Some of these guys, between running and receiving, over 450 times you could be touching the ball over the season. No other player has to deal with plays that are designed for you to get hit more than running backs. And the way that these guys are just being cast off to the side for the fresh guys that are coming out of college, it's just, the disrespect is real, man. The disrespect is real. And my son, he's 6 years old right now. And I slowly started bringing him into football and everything and teaching him, everything I know and getting him out there to play. And he's actually beaten his older brother and his older sister now a couple times. He's good, but all he wants to do is play running back. All he wants to do is run. And I'm like, while that is something that you're good at, it might be something that, with your legs, you might be able to learn something from a different position. Because while the running back, you are the one that's going to be scoring just as often as, anybody else on the field because of how frequently you get the ball. You're the one that's also going to get hurt a lot more. You're going to be paid a lot less if you make it somewhere. And it's like, honestly, I don't know how there are so many young kids that still want to play running back. I get that you want to be the playmaker. But if you are a playmaker with any sort of ability at all, why wouldn't you put your efforts toward another position where you got to deal with less bullshit, less injury, and potentially more money if you make it big enough, if you make it high enough? Just a topic of thought there. But running backs, you know what? I Mark Ingram and all these guys that are still in the league, you can't argue with the production that, Mark has done to this point, rotating in. And he's a good running back for that. He's proven it throughout his career, 13 years in. I hope that these veterans start getting a little bit more respect after the draft. But as far as how the market has treated running backs over the last 10 years, it's just been disrespectful, I think, to this point for me. But wrapping up today, we're going to wrap it up with the NFL News Roundup, the latest league updates from Tuesday, April 11th. From around the NFL staff. Just going to go team by team. The Atlanta Falcons traded cornerback Jeff Okudah is being acquired via trade with the Detroit Lions in exchange for a 2023 fifth-round pick, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reports. The Baltimore Ravens. USC wide receiver Jordan Addison visited the Ravens last week, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport has reported. The Buffalo Bills, USC wide receiver Jordan Addison is also visiting the Bills this week, according to Ian Rappaport. And Boston College receiver Zay Flowers is scheduled to visit Buffalo on Thursday, Tom Pelissero reports. The Carolina Panthers, LSU guard Anthony Bradford is visiting Carolina this week, according to Tom Pelissero. The Detroit Lions trading quarterback Jeff Okudah, being traded to the Falcons in exchange for that 5th-round pick. The Houston Texans are getting a visit from Alabama quarterback Bryce Young for a pre-draft visit later this week, according to Tom Pelissero. The Indianapolis Colts Arizona State linebacker Kyle Soll is visiting the Colts today, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reports. Kansas City Chiefs LSU guard Anthony Bradford is also going to be visiting Kansas City this week, according to Tom Pelissero. The Minnesota Vikings USC wide receiver Jordan Addison is visiting the Vikings this week. Please upgrade the defense. I know a receiver is tempting. I know it's tempting. And honestly, we could use another one with Thielen going. But I'm more worried about the defense than I am the offense. Honestly, this team's a mess. Also, LSU guard Anthony Bradford is visiting Minnesota this week, also reported by Tom Pelissero. The New England Patriots USC wide receiver Jordan Addison visited the Patriots last week, according to Ian Rappaport. The New York Giants wide receiver Jordan Addison is visiting the Giants this week, according to Ian Rappaport. Also, Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt is headed to New York for a Wednesday visit with the Giants, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reports. Also, Boston College receiver Zay Flowers is scheduled to visit the Giants on Wednesday. So a lot of receivers coming to New York. I think we know what they're going after in the first round, which they need. Seattle Seahawks, New Mexico State strong safety Jarek Reed is visiting the Seahawks today, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reported. Also, LSU guard Anthony Bradford is visiting Seattle this week, per Pelissero. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is headed to Tampa tonight for a Wednesday visit with the Buccaneers, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reports. Also, Kansas State outside linebacker Felix Anudike-Uzomah is visiting Tampa on Wednesday, per Pelissero. Tennessee Titans, Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is visiting Tennessee today, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reports. And finishing it off with the Washington Commanders, Arizona State linebacker Kyle Soll is scheduled to visit the Commanders, NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reports. And that is how we are going to wrap it up today. If you are on the YouTube side of things, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe and hit the notification bell to know when my next video goes live. If you're on the Spotify side of things, be sure to follow the podcast so you know when the next episode goes live. We're also on Google Podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're kind of everywhere now. So you can go to your favorite one of your choosing and look up the Hannah Sports Podcast. I'm Andrew Hannah, and that is going to be it for today's episode, and I will catch up with you magnificent bastards later.